Was this how you always thought about your business? It's just progressed over time, where we started with this wide of a net. These people on the edges are really a huge pain in the butt and they're taking most of our time. But these folks in the middle seem to be our happiest clients and their projects are the most profitable. And then they do really, really well with the home. And then they come back to us for another one. So we just have slowly kind of narrowed our funnel. And we obviously don't want to ever get too narrow. Like at a certain point, you can't say no to 99% of the people. You still have to deal with some people that are not ideal, but it's finding that balance between what's too wide of a net to cast and what's too narrow of a net to cast and trying to find a sweet spot in the middle. The only way to do that is just by trial and error.
What is going on, STR Nation? This is your host. I'm brother from another mother. I'm Manuel Pani here with the Larry Bird of STR Secrets. Mr. Chris Peste.
What's up, B? Good to see you, my man. It's always good to see you.
Yeah, man. How have you been, dude? We passed Thanksgiving. Or it's now December 4th. What does Chris Peste do December of every year?
Oh, that's a loaded question. First of all, Thanksgiving. We hosted. My 4-year-old turned 4 on Sunday.
Wow.
He had a ton of fun with that. It's a good family time. I actually went out to I just got back, just drove 6 hours to make this call from New York to see my sister. So got to see my 2 nieces. It's been a lot of family time this time of year, I think, per usual, but also a lot of time for reflection. And it's a great time to think back on the year, but then also start to build momentum for the next year. And we get into that a little bit with this interview, this podcast guest. But, before we get there, how are you? How was your?
I'm amazing. Dude, Thanksgiving is my favorite American holiday that I have gently taken over into my life. I love the concept of it. And you guys know I do tend to practice gratitude constantly. And for me, it's a big kind of piece of that. And then overall, it's just getting to help people now finding clarity. And that's one of the questions that I was asking with the boardroom guys is okay, now that you are in December, are you more of a person that is reflecting on 2025, or are you a person that is mostly in the planning for 2026? And whichever one you are is great. And also practice the other one. Meaning if you are somebody that is heavy on the reflecting and you're not yet planning, dedicate some of the reflection time to the planning. If you're heavy on the planning, dedicate some time to the reflection, because if you don't change, you're going to continue to get the same things. And so it's what are those little things that you get to change and improve on? And it's also this moment where you get to be really loving and kind and honest with yourself as to cool, 11 months in, I thought this year was going to be X. And the reality is that this year wasn't X. I missed the mark on a lot of things. Why is that? What did I do? Where did I now show up for myself? And because 2026 can really be your year if you choose to, right? This is the moment. And then the other piece for me, man, is building momentum. And I always love December for that reason. I choose to really go pedal to the metal in December. I've always done so because I love starting the year with momentum. And so for me, that's the biggest gift, right? It's now that you're reviewing the goals that you didn't hit, how can you aggressively pursue them for the next 26 days so that you go into the new year not having to cold start your life, your company, your health, all of those things, right? It's just gift yourself momentum. Start, if you've never started a new year with momentum, understand if you gift that to yourself now by not doing anything else, your 2026 year is going to be way better than anything else. But I can start it differently,
I can almost guarantee that what you thought the end of 2025 was going to look like is not what actually transpired in some form. So part of that is detaching from the result and realizing, I need to do this month's work before I can do the next month's.
100%. There's nothing else, right? And so after that rant, always part of being, guys, you get to hang out with me. This app is in person. It's just part of who I am. I find a soapbox and I get on it. And if there is no soapbox, I'll build one so I can stand on it. How it goes. But we had Mark Lumpkin from STR Cribs on the show. And I, deeply enjoyed it because I love people that love what they do. And I said this a lot, is finding and building a business that you get to enjoy is one of your rights as a human being. Working for satisfaction is one of your rights as a human being. This whole concept of I got to work for money. No, at least in my opinion, right? You get to work for satisfaction. And so when you get to meet somebody that loves what they do, you'll hear it. You can hear Mark geeks out about his work, his team, how he goes about things. And he's so electric, contagious that this interview went on for like way longer than we normally go, because both Chris and I, like I could have asked him 15 more questions, right? And so it was just so good. So good. What did you enjoy the most?
Yeah, well, I mean, the spot on energy was fantastic. I think a couple things to look out for. We talk about the amenities arm race. That's kind of a term that you'll hear in the STR industry right now. And he describes why that's not exactly the right way of thinking about that and how to think about it differently. And then we took a left turn into leadership and hiring. And man, my eyes lit up when he called out that his company is all about being snipers. So look out for that nugget, because that was amazing. It's all about sharpening the axe. And that's what you can tell that he's doing that in his day-to-day craft. And he's building that culture by behaving the way he wants his company to behave. And so to me, one of the things that I took away from it is there's no wonder why he's got this SEAL Team 6 philosophy, right? That was a term that he used, because that's what he's embodying, that he's becoming that person. That's a self-image. And so people around you are going to want to mimic that. And so it was a beautiful, I guess, journey to a different world that I wasn't expecting to go down and during this podcast. But it was a fun trip to go down, because we got into leadership, we got into hiring, and a lot of things that I need as an operator to understand really, really deeply if I'm going to succeed in the long term.
When you succeed in the long term. And with that being said, we welcome Mark Lumpkin from STR Cribs on the show. It's been on, Mark.
Hey guys. Yeah, super excited to be here with you. Thanks again for having me on.
Yeah, man. So you went and set up over 500 STRs around the country. That is why you're here, right? So give us a little rundown of how did this happen and the story of STR Cribs and how are you here now?
Yeah. So the story is pretty straightforward, man. Our company was actually born out of another company. Our owner had a construction company that handled usually primary residences and just residential remodels. And about 4.5 years ago, we got approached by a group of investors that were buying short-term rentals all across the country. And they were looking for some help locally to set up a few short-term rentals. We ended up winning the bid, becoming their construction crew. And we had noticed and pointed out a lot of things that they were doing that we felt like were wrong and that weren't going to scale. They weren't going to be great for operations for years to come and things like that. And so as we started to point out things and say, hey, why are you doing it like this? Why don't you do it like this? They came to us and said, hey, you're the only construction crew that's ever taken the time to actually think about our properties and what their use case is going to be and suggest things and do things specifically for these to be short-term rentals. And they asked us if we'd go with them. Like basically, hey, can we use you guys in other states? And we realized that it was a niche, that there was a lot of design companies. There's a lot of great designers out there, but there was not a construction company that was licensed, bonded, and insured that could build new properties. They could do remodels, that could pull permits, they could install in-ground pools, that could do a lot of these things. And so we actually dropped the entire residential remodel division, and all we do now since about 3.5 years ago is short-term rentals. So we now have an in-house design firm. We really think of ourselves not as designers. We are a construction company at our core, and that allows us to do a lot of things that other people can't. But yeah, man, that's how we got started, just by happenstance. And then we opened it up, and we've helped people buy their 100th short-term rental and set it up, and we've helped people set up their very first one. So it's been fun.
Love it. And we've had Sif that you used to work with on the show before. That was one of my favorite shows of 2025. So go back if you haven't listened to it. And super interesting guy, Sif, and his vision, right? And so one of the first things that I want to ask you right off the bat, you say something that I think is counterintuitive to the majority of people that are just getting started in this business. It's like, I have a group of investors coming to me. So the assumption is high net worth, high intelligence people. Here we are, and we're going to tell them what they're doing wrong, because in our gut, we know that that's wrong, and you were rewarded for it, which I think is it's a little nuance that a lot of people would benefit from that listen to the show. It's like, if you pattern interrupt people and you tell them like, listen, I know you're the man and you have the bank account and the checkbook, and also you're doing it wrong. Help us understand that. Like, help us understand, like, how did you guys go about it? And if we have somebody listening that's like, oh my God, like, I want to do the same thing. I have tons of clients that would really benefit. How did you guys think about that?
Yeah, I think that was just at our core of who we always were. And so it was pretty easy for us to do that. I think that oftentimes we think of it a little bit like the boogeyman, like it's a lot worse than it really is. When you look underneath the bed, the monster's not as big and scary as you think. And I don't care how wealthy someone is or how smart they think they are. For the most part, people are pretty receptive to positive feedback or directional feedback, especially from someone that they consider to be an expert. And so if you have that level of expertise and you're, let's say, their property manager or their contractor or their cleaning company or whatever, they already trust you with their asset or with what they're investing in. And so you speaking from a position of authority is going to be very well received as long as you do it the right way. But I think you can be pretty blunt with most people and just tell them, hey guys, your personal bias is leading to you making bad decisions in this particular instance. And let me show you why. So then you've got to have some data to back it up and some case studies. But when you have those, it's a no-brainer. And so I have a good example of like my own personal bias. We've got a property near the beach that me and my wife own and manage. And a guest had said, hey, are there televisions in every room of the house? So 4 or 5 bedroom house. And there was like 2 or 3, there's maybe 2 TVs in the house, master bedroom and living room. And I thought to myself, I saw the message and I asked my wife, I was like, why do they need TVs? It's beautiful. They're coming to the beach. Like you're on vacation with your family. What are you talking about? Go to the beach, go outside. You have this beautiful piece of property. And she's like, well, it doesn't matter what you think, Mark. It doesn't matter that you don't want to watch TV when you're on vacation. This guest is asking us, and clearly they want TVs. And TVs don't really cost that much money. So just put damn TVs in every bedroom. And then we did that, right? And so it's really hard for people, especially in hospitality, to not let their personal bias kind of dictate what they do with the properties and how they manage it. But you've got to listen to the market and to your guests. And so I think that's really important, is putting that aside. And then when you have those case studies for your clients and you can say, guys, you're doing this because you want to do this, but the Johnsons are doing it the right way over here, and they're making $40,000 more a year in revenue than you. So what's more important? You liking the fact that your house has this or this, or making an extra $40,000 a year? And so when you have those case studies, then it's a no-brainer for your clients to listen to.
That's such a great point. I would love to dive into it, but I'm going to give it to Chris because I know Chris is kind of like chomping at the bits over there because I know he goes through this conversation quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, with our own clients, right? We talk. I tell the team, we're not managers, we're advisors. And our job as advisors is to give them pointed direction and be blunt, like you're saying, and back it up with data. And that's exactly what you're talking about. I'm really curious because you come into this space, you mentioned this off air. We talk a lot about the amenities arm race. Everybody's just adding amenities to be more and more competitive. And you mentioned something interesting that it's actually about strategic selection. Could you tell us a little bit about what you mean by that and how investors or operators should be thinking about that so we can curate those conversations a little better for our homeowners?
Yeah, I mean, I think that even I am, people might look at my social medias or listen to other podcasts I've been on. Even I'm the one who's oftentimes preaching amenities, more. But there is a point of diminishing return. And when you're a property manager or you're a property advisor, I like that, you're trying to convince clients that maybe aren't in the weeds of this every day to spend a lot of money on their property. And what you've got to do is if you can be strategic on the front end and just do 1 or 2 or 3 amenities that are ideal for your guest avatar and for your market, those are going to have the most meaningful impact on the front end, right? If you're in the Smoky Mountains, obviously a hot tub is going to be a must-have amenity. And if you've got a property without a hot tub, well, you're just missing out on a vast majority of the business. Same thing, if you're in Florida and you don't have a pool, it's going to be really hard to compete in Florida without a pool. So there's some pretty glaring amenities that are needed for a lot of properties. I would start with those. I would also focus on the quality of amenities a little bit over the quantity. And so if I had the choice to do, say I got a $25,000 budget and I can go get 2 or 3 amenities in my backyard, but they're all going to be kind of half-assed done and not really set up properly, I would rather just do one and do it really, really well, where it's nicely staged, it's got lights on it, it's an experience for the guest. I think that's more important. And I think that's easier to get your clients to commit to as well, right? It's easier to say, hey guys, we need to do this one thing or 2 things and do them really, really well, and they're going to make some meaningful impact, versus going to someone and saying, hey, we got to do 20 things in this backyard or in this game room, right?
So Mark, give us a breakdown, right? Like STR Cribs, how many institutional investors are you guys working with? How many like mom and pop or like people that are just like, hey, I have some money, I want to spend some money. Like what's the breakdown of your guys' business?
Yeah, it used to be almost 50-50 for several years as we got started. And it's definitely become about 70-30. And about 70% of our clients are the mom and pop investors buying their first or fifth short-term rental. It's usually the vast majority of our clients own under 10 short-term rentals. And we do still work with a lot of the funds and we help them, it's easy for them to scale with us because like you said, we work all across the country in different markets. And our process and system is rinse and repeat. They know what they're getting with us every time. So it's pretty straightforward. But I would say a vast majority of people that we work with today are the individual investors.
Cool. So my question is this, right? You deal with institutional people that have lots of money. And then you deal with a mom and pop that are probably more in the conversation of like, I have a limited budget. How do I stretch it the most? What are some of the mistakes that you see from your years of experience that institutional people make just from the sheer fact that they have more money, right? So they have this concept of like, they get to burn more cash versus some of the stuff that the little guys are so much more aware or cautious about. And they're kind of better off like that they could teach to an institutional investor because you're like, dude, yeah, that's a much better way to spend your money.
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know if I've really seen any major mistakes that the institutional money has made on the setup side. I have seen on the management side where from my own experience, it's a lot easier to manage one or two properties that's just 5 minutes down the road than managing 100 properties spread across the country, right? And so that is really the leverage point that I think the kind of the mom and pop folks still have an advantage over some of these larger groups that are buying a lot of properties is that you can do a better job with quality, with guest experience. You could be down the road and show up if the door lock doesn't work, things like that. I do give the edge and advantage to the kind of mom and pop people when it comes to managing and long-term guest satisfaction. But on the front end, I would say really the only thing is I've seen some kind of the institutions they'll dive in with both feet and because they have some funds and sometimes they'll do things and we're privy to that because we're helping them do it that maybe don't pan out. Like, hey, let's take this shed and turn it into a cool game room. Well, guess what? That didn't work out because we realized no one wanted, after a year or two, nobody wanted to walk out of the house, walk all the way across the yard, unlock the shed, turn on the mini split so that it wasn't cold or hot, sit there for 10 minutes and and it was an unused amenity. And so I actually think that our experience with trials and errors and mistakes is a huge benefit to our future clients because we can look back on some of those mistakes and go, hey guys, actually that version of whatever didn't work out quite as well as we thought it would, but this has really worked out. So let's stick to these things. So yeah, that would be kind of my answer to that question, Supart.
I'd love to know how you'd respond to a question like a new client comes to you and says, I love to just test it out for the first year with short-term rentals, and then I'll make upgrades. And as a manager, I know that's not the right mindset to have. A lot of folks maybe are coming from the LTR world, long-term rental world, and they're trying to cut costs as much as they can, right? But that's not how short-term rentals work. I always say, you're not really in real estate, you're in hospitality. So an owner comes to you and maybe not to you because at that point they're committed. But if they're coming to a manager and they're saying, hey, I love to work with you, but I appreciate all your suggestions on amenities. I really want to just test it out first and see if it works. But as a manager, that's not how this world works. What's your response to that? How do you answer that question?
I'd let them go. I wouldn't waste any time on them. There's plenty enough people out there that own properties that are willing to go all in, do it the right way. I'm a big believer in the 80-20 rule, and I think you're just going to waste a vast majority of your time on your worst properties, your worst owners that have the worst amount of revenue. They take up all of your time. So let them go. Just fire them or don't take on the project and then dedicate the time and energy that you would have spent trying to rip someone across the finish line that shouldn't be in the race with you and go find someone else that wants to run alongside it.
So you said the 80-20 rule. You also said at the beginning of this recording, you dropped the residential construction business to go all in on this niche. That's a great application of the 80-20 rule called pumpkin planning. Elaborate on that. Share more about your mindset on that, because I think that's where a lot of operators, a lot of folks that are in this space, they get stuck. They don't want to lose a lot of these listings that they might have. How would you combat that?
Yeah. Not to just be like the analogy guy, but I think this is a good way to put it in perspective for people. We try to be snipers in our business. And so instead of being like a machine gunner where you're just shooting bullets all over the place and hoping that you hit something, I would rather spend all day long researching one phone call that I'm going to make and make that phone call as effective and efficient as possible. Getting in front of the right people is a better use of your time than spending all day long talking to 100 people, right? You walk up and down the street and just start questioning random people and say, hey, do you want to invest in short-term rentals? And you could think that you're busy and you could think that you're working hard, but you're actually just wasting your time and energy. And so that's a really hard mindset for people to get into. But once you see the success of it, you realize like, what were we doing? Why did we manage 50 properties? Now we're managing 25 and we're way more profitable. Our revenue's up. We don't have to deal with upset clients. We don't have to deal with the Johnsons who are a pain in the ass and called us 3 times a day to ask why this, da-da-da-da. Everyone's happy. It's just, as soon as you can turn that switch, I don't know if I've ever met anybody in business that has said that was a mistake. Gosh, I wish I would have kept spending all my time and energy on clients that I shouldn't have been working with. I don't know if anybody's ever said it in any industry. I think that that's just should be a standard for businesses. You should spend all of your time and energy on your best clients and your most profitable use of your time.
Be a sniper. I love that.
Be a sniper.
I haven't heard that one before.
Yeah, it's really good. So
I mean, I've even talked to like huge property managers that have done the same thing. Evolve. I just talked to them at VRMA. Their entire business model has flipped upside down. They used to be, they raised $100 million and they went out and got everything. And they took any house, any property, any owner and built this huge portfolio, ran it for a year or two and went, holy shit, this was a bad idea. And they started dropping people left and right. So when these huge companies are realizing that dealing with bad owners and bad properties was not worth it, it's pretty easy for us individual small operators to realize that it's probably the same for us.
there's so much good in there. There's so much good in there. So Mark, was this how you always thought about your business, or is that a pivotal moment, conversation, mentor that helped you? Like who helped you see the light? Because I think that's something that we don't talk a lot about.
Yeah, I don't know if there was necessarily like one particular person or an moment. I think it was more, it's just progressed over time where we started with this wide of a net and we're like, okay, we'll do this kind of work. And then we realized, hey, these people on the edges are really a huge pain in the butt and they're taking most of our time. But these folks in the middle seem to be our happiest clients and their projects are the most profitable. And then they do really, really well with the home. And then they come back to us for another one. So we just have slowly kind of narrowed our funnel. And we obviously don't want to ever get too narrow. Like at a certain point, you can't say no to 99% of the people. You still have to deal with some people that are not ideal. But it's finding that balance between what's too wide of a net to cast and what's too narrow of a net to cast and trying to find a sweet spot in the middle. I think the only way to do that is just by trial and error. And everybody's kind of got to go through that themselves. You know what I mean? They have to apply those principles to their business and start with saying, all right, these are our 5 worst clients. We don't want to lose 5 deals. So let's fire 2 of them and then see if we can replace them 2 with 1 really good one. And it's like, oh, that worked. Okay, now let's fire the other 3 and see if we can replace them 3 with another 1 or 2 really good ones. And so I think you got to start small, but you can slowly find your way into that really sweet spot.
Love that. And so now that you look at the next, 3 to 5 years for STR Cribs, what do you see in the future? And the other big question that I always have with founders like yourself is like, what's the plan for Mark? Like, what does Mark get to do now? And what is he looking forward to doing more of and maybe less of?
Yeah, I think that it's the plan for STR Cribs is a lot like what we just talked about. It's better quality and not necessarily more quantity. So if we did 100 projects in 2025, can we go do another 100 projects next year at a higher dollar amount and get a better quality, faster timelines, better guest satisfaction? Just kind of take the same, what we were already doing, let's just do that again, but let's just do it better next year. And then it's more profitable for us, it's more profitable for our clients. All in all, it's a win-win. And then for me personally, I've really enjoyed the short-term rental industry. And I feel like for the last 5 or 6 years, I've been kind of in my little bubble doing our own thing. And so I'm definitely looking forward to kind of getting out there more and building more partnerships and going to more events and talking on podcasts with cool guys like you and growing our social media presence and just kind of getting the message out there. To me, that's really important. And then expanding my own personal portfolio, just trying to buy another 1 or 2 houses every year and keep after it. I don't know if I don't know if this year, I don't know if next year looks a whole lot different than this year. Just want it to be a little bit higher quality. And that's really what I'm trying to go for every year.
That's amazing, man. I'm excited to see more of you because again, I'm not ashamed to admit I had no idea who you guys were. And then once I found out who you were, I was like, how did I not know that STR Cribs existed? Like you have done some crazy things. So I'm like very fascinated by that. What I heard in that is also like you get to step into more and more of that role of like from player to coach and from coach to CEO, right? Which is kind of like the main point of our show too, is like helping people understand the mindset around scaling. And to me, the biggest piece of the mindset around scaling is also like your team. And so give us a breakdown of Mark's philosophies around leadership and how do you find great team members and how do you find great people?
Yeah. So our company-wide, we have adopted a very simple philosophy, and we call it SEAL Team 6, which is we want to be in a very small group of super specialized individuals that are the absolute best at what they do. And so when we were scaling a couple years ago quickly, and we had more projects than we knew what to do with, we were just hiring warm bodies. And we were like, oh, you're qualified and you're here and you show up to work. Okay, cool. You're on the team because we need people. And that, quite frankly, kind of led to some disasters and some bad projects and some unhappy clients and upset employees as well because we didn't train them correctly and we didn't give them proper expectations, set them up for failure too. So all in all, it was just not good for us to just scale with no plan. And so what we realized is, hey, we have like, at this time we had 3 or 4 people and we were all on a call and we realized, hey, we got 3 or 4 people here and every one of us is 100% committed to the cause. We're willing to work on weekends. We're willing to drive 10 hours to go fix a problem. We're very good at what we do and we're doing the job of 2 or 3 people. And we thought, what if we just took the same philosophy? What if instead of going and hiring 4 new project managers, what if we just go find the very best possible project manager we can? They might cost twice as much as the other people. But instead of hiring 4 people, what if we hire 1 person, give them all the tools, resources, support that they need to be the best possible version of themselves? And what we found is that 1 person, with the help of an assistant and some great SOPs and things like that, they could do not only the same amount of work as 4 other project managers, but they could do it at such a higher quality. And so for us, that's what it's been. It's SEAL Team 6. We're only adding the very best of the best. And if that means our team stays pretty small, then that's okay. I'd rather hire 1 killer than go hire 2 or 3 mediocre people.
In the book, The Science of Scaling, Ben Hardy talks about the concept of super who, which is very similar. And I'm very curious, talk to us about that process of sourcing that person. You know, what is that? Did you use an outsourced company? Like, give me more and elaborate a little bit for folks that are looking for those A players to join their team. What does that process look like at STR Cribs?
It's a great question, man. Oftentimes it comes from recruiting. And we found that oftentimes the best people to do your job are already doing the same kind of job somewhere else. And so everyone's always recruiting. We're always have that little hat on in the back of our mind of like, oh, wow, we met so-and-so at a conference. She's awesome. Let's throw her in the drip campaign and just follow up with her and make sure she's doing okay and follow her on social media. And every once in a while, reach out and say, hey, I hope you're doing well. Oh, by the way, we have a position available if you're interested. So it's oftentimes from recruiting company-wide. That's everyone. That's all the way down. Who do you know? And always be thinking about the next hire for us.
How do you find those A players? I mean, that's the eternal recruiting communication, talking to other people, get it? Making sure that they're A players. Like, what is that training process? Because there's a bunch of reasons why a hire might go wrong. And it's hard to figure out, was it a bad hire? Did we interview the person incorrectly? Did we not onboard them well? Do we not have SOPs or training? Like, walk me through that pipeline. That what does it look like for STR Cribs?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely starts with the individual and beyond their qualifications, just their character, right? Are they going to show up on time? Are they going to be punctual? Are they going to be well-dressed? Are they going to follow through and do what they say they're going to do? Those things are oftentimes, in my opinion, more important than the other stuff. That's really the most important priorities. For us, we're hyper niched. And so we do oftentimes need people with construction experience and construction background. It's really, really hard to step into a role in construction when you've never done it before. And so we're oftentimes trying to find people who've done the job at least similar in a similar capacity before, and then to see their results. Like, how well have you done that job? And what I'll say is it's actually not that hard to find great A players when you have a culture that is full of other A players, right? It's the sports analogy. The best basketball players always want to go play on the team with the other best basketball players. And they get frustrated when they're on a team of kind of losers, right? And so it's not like, no disrespect, but there's the truth. There's the difference between people that are they just want to win and other people that are just showing up to get a paycheck. And so quite frankly, it's actually not that hard to go get A players. Sometimes it's hard to find them. You really have to network. You have to see what's going on everywhere, always be having conversations with people. But you'll often find that A players that are on B teams are not happy and they want to join another team. And I'm not saying that we're perfect by any means, but we at least have a culture that says, hey, we want to win and we want to help you win. And if you come here, show us what we're doing wrong. That's the other thing, right? A players always want to improve a process. And so if you're so rigid in your system, you'll bring new people in and they'll have a better way to do this. And if you don't listen to them and you don't take their feedback and you don't improve, it'll be a turnoff for them. And they'll go, oh, this is dumb. I know that we could fix this, but you won't listen to me. But you brought me in here because you thought I was great and now you're not taking my feedback. So you've got to allow the new people that come in to change your culture a little bit and help you get better.
That's so good. A players always.
And that's hard to do, dude. Trust me. When, we got a new team member coming on and I know this person is probably better than me. If not, I've openly said it to everybody in some of the roles that I'm doing. And I know it's going to be like, I'm mentally preparing myself for them to come and say, hey, Mark, I know I can do this a little better. Let me do this, or let's change this. And I'm okay with that. I just have to be. Of course, my pride, some days I'll go, oh, I don't like this. Like that's a natural human reaction. But if I know that the goal is for us to get somewhere, I can't get us there all alone. This team we have now, we can't all get there just us. We've got to bring in new people to help us finish out this journey. And so, yeah, it's hard to do that.
What a great sign of a strong culture when you have somebody that's willing to, be blunt with you and say, hey, man, you're doing this wrong. You can do it better. So that's a kudos to you too, as your leadership. And I'm curious, now that you have those A players on the team, or you're growing the team to be all A players, SEAL Team 6, what does your day look like? And how do you fill your time? What is your highest and best?
Yeah, good question, Chris. Can I add one more thing I think is really important, actually, to just before we move on to circle back on, which was, I know a lot of people will ask, well, how do you do that? How do you create that culture? And what we have that's really interesting is we do a weekly all hands stand-up meeting with an agenda. And it's what we call a safe space or whatever. It is the opportunity and encouraged to call out other people, other processes, mistakes that were made. And it's a heated 1 hour a week call, right? Where it's very intense. And what's funny is we ask our team to rate the quality of the call at the end of that call every week to see. And our most intense meetings are always our highest rated meetings because people feel like there was actually something accomplished in that meeting, even if it was butting heads. And then the ones where they're real passive and, oh yeah, everything's great, no worries. Those are our lowest rated meetings. And so our team is actually happier when we have a little bit of friction and a little bit of tension in those meetings because things actually get done. So that's what I would encourage, that like a takeaway from this is you can do that with your team and spend 1 hour a week. You got to structure it. You don't want people screaming and yelling at each other. But if you structure it properly and everybody's respectful and you encourage disagreement and different point of views, and there's a healthy outcome at the end of the meeting, your team will leave with like a sigh of relief. And they're like, oh my gosh, that was on my chest all week. Why didn't he respond to that client within a timely manner? You were supposed to do it within 24 hours. It took him 2 days. Oh, I didn't know his mom was in the hospital. Oh crap, my bad. I should have jumped in there. And so it's like, there's so much great stuff that comes out of tension when your company, when it's healthily done. I just wanted to throw it out there. I think that that's a great takeaway for people.
No, that's amazing. That's amazing. I appreciate you unpacking all these nuggets too, because we started with the tactical, but what we're really here for is how do we learn to scale these businesses the right way? And you're talking about that. So I appreciate it. But back to what I was asking, like you have these A players on the team. What's your time? What does your day look like? We always talk about designing your perfect week in the mastermind, and I'm curious what that looks like for you at this point.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I'm definitely still doing most of our front end marketing, sales, client expectations, things like that. And so I think what'll happen is as our team gets bigger and some better A players come in behind me that could do that job better, then I'll do more transitioning into brand awareness. Like he said, he didn't even know who we are. We've been around for 3.5 years, and he's a pretty influential guy in the short-term rental space. So the fact that you didn't know who we are means that there's a lot of people who don't know who we are. So for me, it's going to be a lot of evangelical work, spreading the message and getting it out there. And I'm looking forward to a lot of events, being on stage with some people, talking in short-term rental construction. And I think to me, that's what my perfect day looks like, man. I like talking to people. So definitely, I don't know if we'll ever be out of the weeds. I think that there's a lot of moving parts and a lot of moving pieces. But yeah, man, that's probably what it'll transition into, hopefully.
I love, and I said this to Sif too, like Sif is very passionate. And going back to the A player conversation, you're also very passionate, right? And so to me, that's an evident piece of your personality and who you are. So my question to you, which is a question that I'd like to ask specifically to founders and CEOs, is like, okay, what do you work on behind the scenes that people maybe don't know about? Like, what's something that you're learning or something that you're improving on that you know it's there to make your game way better in the future that people may not be expecting you to be working on right now?
Yeah, I think that fixing the biggest pain points should probably be the focus for anybody who's running a business in the back end, right? You've got a process and you've got a system and you've got team members doing things, but it's like a factory line. You can see where the slowdowns are. When you stand back and you look back, you can see the hiccups and you can go, oh, that's taking 2 days. Man, I wonder if I could get that down to taking an hour. And it seems like a lot of people are upset with this and this and this. Can I go fix those little things? So I think for any great kind of operators, going in and fixing the holes is oftentimes the best use of your time once you built the ship, right? You built the ship, it's already running, man, but you know there's holes in the ship, and can you go plug a hole here and plug another one there and just help your team operate a little bit more efficiently? I think that's a really great use of time. And then I think adding fuel to the fire is another great use of time. Can we go find another partnership that gets us another 5 or 10 deals a year? Perfect. Can we go find another subcontractor that can do the same quality for a little bit less and increase our bottom line? Let's do that. So yeah, making the team more efficient and then just adding fuel to their fire, I think is the best use for those type of people.
I love that. And I want to be respectful of your time. I could ask you hundreds of questions. So I'm going to reel myself in. One of the things that you just said, right, is like finding good subcontractors. And so I would love to hear if you knew everything you know now and you wanted to go out and pretty much start doing what you're doing now in 2026. How would you go about finding those subcontractors and the team members from scratch?
Yeah, from scratch. And I know you've got a lot of people in the short-term rental space that are remote operators. And so this question comes up often, even like, hey, how can I find a cleaning crew? And how can I figure out how to get the trash cans to the curb and back behind the house? I don't know if there's any easy way to do it. I don't know. There's no magic button. It simply is just hard work. Picking up the phone, having conversations with people, asking for references, looking at reviews, looking at past work, and then trialing them. Okay, you say all this stuff. I'm going to give you a pretty easy task. Go to the house and do this and this. And then let's see how you perform with that. Do you send project photo updates? Do you communicate with our team in a timely manner? Are you showing up on time? Are you leaving the house clean and not a mess when you leave it? Things like that. It is a lot of hard work on the front end. I don't think there's any magic pill. And it is a lot of trial and error. And you've got to be willing to find 5 or 10 people, narrow it down to 1 or 2. That's the number. So you're going to go find 10 people and 1 or 2 of them are going to come through for you. After you've done that, you then have to take really good care of that person and that relationship. And so you've got to figure out what their business is looking for, what are their long-term goals, and it's different for everybody. You can find a guy that does great work and wants to do 100 times more work and is looking for scale. You can find another guy that does great work and he just wants to hang out with his kids on the weekend and he doesn't want you to call him after 5 p.m. because that's his family time. And you just got to find that hot button for those people and then make sure that you continue to build that relationship so that when you pick up the phone on Saturday at 11:30 at night and say, oh shit, my hot water heater exploded and the basement is flooding, you got a guy who says, I got you. I'm jumping out of bed. I'll go over there and I'll get this fixed for you right now, because he appreciates that you've taken time to invest in his property, in his business, build a long-term relationship with him, and you give some reciprocity there. That's what you got to do, man. It's hard work to find them, and even harder to keep them, but there's no way around it. I wish there was a magic pill. I wish there was an app. I wish there was just an app that you could say, yeah, I need this, and someone would show up and do it. It doesn't exist.
That was the answer I was looking for, because I think as an industry, that being the podcast industry and the coaching industry and the STR industry, I think we get to move away more and more from this concept of like hacks. Because I think the reality is that it's old principles, and principles are principles, and they're always going to work. And so there is an element of like, I want to hack that can go only so far, to the point that like, I think every great company, and the more I interview people that have great businesses, it's just like, dude, the end of the day, it's run way more simplistic than a lot of people that I know that have tiny businesses. And they're like, what's the next hack? I'm like, there is no hack, right? Like, that's why the people that like, the new people only do one or two things. And then the middle crowd is the one that is doing all the things, all the softwares. And then the elite people go back to only doing one or two things. And so in a way, it's like, okay, let's go back to doing the one or two things that really work. And like, how do you find great people? In my opinion, A, don't be an asshole. B, don't treat people like shit. C, respect people, and rinse and repeat until you find your people, right?
I know you're looking to land the plane here with your magic finishing question, but I'm very curious, Mark. You keep on talking about refining the business, right? And creating and eliminating process and looking for improvements. What are you personally refining, or what are you looking to refine going into 2026? And talking about moving from the middle to the elite, like the elite just are constantly refining what they do. So I'm curious, just personally, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, so a big one is our client communication. And I think that goes with a lot of businesses, right? Where if you're a property manager, you have owners that are looking for communication. And what we found is that in the past, we didn't communicate enough, and then we over communicate. People didn't like that either. There was confusion, things like that. And so we've tried to find that sweet spot of communication. And I think we're getting really close to that, where it's that weekly update. This is all the things that we've done on your project. Here's photos. Here's blah, 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 blah. So to us, the client communication is always a constant battle. We've also added in a night shift. So we have a crew that is monitoring emails and messages in the evenings, that if someone messages us at 5:30, because they're a doctor in California and their project is going on in Sevierville, Tennessee, and they don't get off work till 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So they start asking questions at 9 p.m. our time, and our team's asleep or they're on their personal time. And then we don't respond to them until the next day, but then they're at work. We found that time zone difference and that communication now means a simple question that could have been answered within 5 minutes doesn't get answered for 24 hours. And that's not a good look for anybody. So we've tried to hone in the communication. We're doing that in a bunch of different ways, and we're just playing and tweaking with it to find the sweet spot. The next thing would really be quality as we wrap up projects, right? And I think that relates to property managers as well. The quality of what your home looks like when someone shows up is very important. Does it smell good? Are all the beds made? There's no pee on the toilet. Like, you got one chance, the first impression someone walks into your short-term rental. And if you miss a couple little things, the rest of the trip is rocky. And so we're feeling the same type of pressure when we hand our properties back to clients and say, here you go, your home's done. Well, we don't want them to walk through and go, oh, there's some missing caulking there. And oh, there's some touch-up paint that needs to be done there. And oh, this bed only has 3 pillows. It should have 4 pillows. So to me, those are the two big kind of points that we're working on actively, is client communication and then the quality of the handoff when we finish our projects.
It never ends either, does it?
No, dude, no way, right?
You can always refine your quality.
For sure. And then as you're scaling, it's hard to do that too, because if you have 80% of your clients happy and you only do 10 projects, you only have 2 people that are unhappy. If you do 100 projects and 90% of your clients are unhappy, you've improved your quality, but because you've scaled to a much higher level, you now have 10 people that are unhappy. And that feels much worse than having 2 people that are unhappy. So it's this yin and yang, it never ends.
So Mark, I want to be respectful of your time again, because Chris as a co-host is just as bad as I am, right? We'd love to ask questions, and we're very curious kids in nature. So we'll just keep asking you questions. But for people that, like me, somehow have no idea who STR Crib is or what you do, where can people find out more about you and learn more from you?
Yeah, man. So I'm pretty active on social media. I actually just added you guys this morning. Facebook, LinkedIn. I post every single day on LinkedIn. So you can follow me there, DM me. And then I'm happy to share my email. And then you or Chris, you guys can throw it in the show notes if you want to, and people can reach out. Or you guys can find us just at strcribs.com, short-term-rental-cribs.com. And yeah, man, the cool thing is too, is that I'm always happy to talk with anybody about any project. I know that getting into real estate, especially if you're buying properties that have value add, if it's a brand new construction, that's a little bit easier to know what you're getting into. But if you're buying a 50-year-old home that needs some renovations, it's hard to know what you need to budget and what things could go wrong. And so I'm always even happy, even if someone doesn't hire us, to chat through a project with them and give them my honest opinion on what a project's going to take. And I extend that to anybody listening to your pod. They can reach out to me.
Awesome, man. And so then the last question we ask all of our guests, and I'm curious to hear your answer for it, is what's your number one secret to success with short-term rentals?
The number one secret, I think that just being real and authentic and genuine is oftentimes going to help you win, especially in the world that we live in, where there's so much fake. There's AI, there's heavily edited photos that don't even look like your property, there's chat bots. Some of those tools are really cool. I think that the short-term rental industry, like Chris said, is hospitality. It's not necessarily real estate. And I think that being genuine and real in hospitality is always a winning recipe. We all know the restaurant we like to go to because the waitress remembers our name and she's sweet, she smiles at us. That's just a human thing. People like that in hospitality. It's what they're looking for. And so if you do that, I think you'll win. If you pick up the phone and you just are honest with people and tell them the truth, hey, sorry guys, we made a mistake. Your house isn't gonna be ready for 2 more hours. Can we pay for your lunch while you're waiting? If you just be a real person, I think you'll win more times than not. And I think we live in a world where people are afraid of that. They're kind of turned off by not their clients, but people think that that's a bad way to operate, is to just have your cards up front on the table. And I actually think it's the opposite. I think it's the best way to operate, is to just be truthful. You don't have to hide anything. If you made a mistake, tell people you made a mistake. If the price is more than you thought it was going to be, tell them it's going to be more. And people will appreciate that genuineness more than the smoke and mirrors.
100%. I love that. And it kind of led us full circle to my initial conversation from the show. And it's lovely that after all this time, you still embody what got you in the partnership with SIF back in the day. And brother, I didn't know who you guys were. I do know now. And I'm really looking forward to A, meeting you in person one day, but B, just seeing what you continue to build and create with STR Cribs. And I really appreciate the work that you guys have done in terms of elevating the playing field for all of us, right? I think, again, good competitors appreciate good competition. And so I applaud you guys for everything that you've done and the stuff that you've helped people do as well.
This was gold. Your energy is contagious, and you have so many nuggets from leadership to the SCR industry specific ideas and things that we should be considering as operators, as investors, as homeowners. So this was amazing, and it was really great to meet you. Hope we get to meet you in person soon.
Yes, likewise, guys. Thank you a bunch for having me on, man. I appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to hopefully connecting in person soon, like I said, Chris.
A pleasure, man. Well, guys, with that, this wraps the show, and we'll see you guys next week. Bye, guys.